Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from US MSOs to Canadian LPs, products and market analysis through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I'm joined as always by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the High Rise.
And we have a very special Poolside episode here in Miami at Benzinga, as you can hear the background noise, with a very special guest today with Nancy Whiteman, CEO of Wana Brands. Thanks so much for joining us today, Nancy.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So you got in today.
I did. Well, last night.
Last night.
Yes.
Has the conference been good?
It's been great.
Yeah.
It feels like everybody is here. Yeah. In fact, this was the last conference that I actually went to before the lockdown, so it's nice to be back.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
First time seeing people.
Yes.
I think the first one, I did MJ Biz. That was kind of post lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It's such a refreshing, you can actually see people in person and not over a Zoom.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is a little better, all concentrated at one hotel.
Yep.
Weather's a little better. Yeah, there's worse places to be.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's
So-
been a good one.
Yeah, why don't we start with the background of Wana Brands? And you've been in the industry a long time, and
Yes.
so I'd love to hear the history.
Yes, I'd be happy to share that. So, yes, it has been a long time. It's actually going to be 12 years this
Wow.
summer. And as
Amazing.
you know, in cannabis, every year is a dog year.
Yeah.
So that's 86 years or something.
But who's
84
counting?
Years, but who's counting? And
Yeah.
it's not like I feel every single one of those years.
No.
But no, I have been in the industry for a while. And Wana is actually sort of a true bootstrap grassroots story. I actually was not thinking about cannabis at all. Happened to have a neighbor over at the house picking up his daughter, who was playing with my daughter. And he was in commercial real estate, and that was not a good thing to be in 2010 in Colorado. And so I just asked him what he was up to, and he said, "Oh, you wouldn't approve." And I'm like, "Oh, give me a try here." And he said, "I'm making infused soda pop." And that was, so interesting, because while I was extremely familiar with cannabis, I actually was not familiar with kind of medical terminology around it. So I said, "What's it infused with?" I didn't even know what he was talking about. But long story short, we ended up building out a kitchen with him. As many of those early partnerships went, it was a relatively short-term partnership, but he got us into the industry, and we just kind of grew organically from there. It's one of the things about getting in early is that we made a lot of mistakes early and learned a lot early. And it was kind of the original, progress not perfection mentality, I guess I would say. So when we first started out, I think like a lot of brands, it took us a minute to kind of find our footing. So we had all kinds of product formats, everything from infused nuts to beef jerky to candy to baked goods. But over time, I really could see that the gummy category was really the one that was starting to take off. And so we sort of doubled down on that. Put a fair amount of resource for a company our size at that point into coming up with a very shelf-stable, delicious, consistent recipe that we could scale, that didn't melt in the summer. And that's really what we started to focus on. And I actually think that was a good decision when I look back on it, because I think that when you think about a lot of the larger, more well-known brands, generally they're known for something. Now, you can branch out once you have sort of a base, but I think it's challenging to try to, out of the gate, come out with, multiple product formats and to try to get them on the shelf. So that's a little bit about our early years. And then we started with our market expansion also very early, going into the Oregon market, which was one of the only other really legal markets at that point. And again, we used an asset-light model on that. So we partner with people who are license holders in other markets. And generally, we share responsibility for sales and marketing with them, but we don't have the capex of building out facilities in every market, which has really enabled us to get to markets quickly. and to scale the way that we've scaled. I think it's been a good model for us, not without its complications, I might add.
I do want to talk about market expansion in a minute, because you guys have some recent expansion in some really cool markets.
Yep.
But the gummy category, it's amazing
Wow.
kind of how prescient you were around that, because it is such a sizable category of edibles. I mean, it just completely dominates.
Yeah.
When you first got into that category, were there many others doing gummies?
No, there weren't. Actually, there was one other company in Colorado at that point, and they had quite a different model than we have. But what they were doing is they were buying gummies off the shelf, kind of gummy worms and gummy whatevers, and they were spraying them with hash oil.
God, yeah.
And so it's, back in the day, I used to spend a lot of time in dispensaries because I was doing everything, including selling. But I just started to see this product everywhere. And then, of course, I bought them. And I'm like, this is like biting into hash oil,
Yes.
right? And so I said, I think we can do better than this, making it from scratch.
Yeah.
And that really was the beginning of it. It really was being close to the marketplace and just seeing what was taking off.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of amazing to be sitting here with you and Sai as two of like defining leaders in the industry, creating cannabis tech and creating cannabis brands. I remember when I got into the space and traveled to Colorado and started hearing about it from California. But so you were a trailblazer in terms of creating kind of a branded product category in cannabis in many ways. Can you share just a little bit about when you were starting to enter into other markets? Because I feel like in those early days, you probably had to also define what it looked like to do those agreements with the
Yes.
operators. Yeah. And
Yeah. I like to say that I think I've made every mistake in the book, but then I make another mistake. So that's not actually true. But I always say that it's not a failure if you learn something from it.
Exactly.
Right? So it was not a failure. But our early markets were definitely learning markets, I'd say. Our first market was Oregon. And we really didn't have a good sense of how to set these things up. There was one of the things that I actually liked about cannabis and still like about cannabis is that there was no roadmap for it. You kind of had to just figure stuff out, and that kind of appealed to me.
Yeah.
So, when I look at our old agreements, I look at our new agreements, I'm practically hyperventilating. Like, I feel saying, oh my God, thank God we're still in business, because they were not well structured in a variety of ways. But, we have learned and evolved since then. And, we've gone through phases with it. I think early days we had a royalty-based type model where the partner did everything. And we really moved to more of a rev share kind of a model where we take on a lot of the sales and marketing expense because it gives us more control of the brand in the marketplace. And as you guys know, every market is so incredibly different.
Yes.
We have an expression at Wana. We say every market's a market.
Every market is a market. Yes.
So, so there's just been a ton of learning and,
Yeah, I think every brand owes a debt of gratitude for you for that because it was pulling the operators along with us, and for a period of time there, it was like every white dude in a suit would just saunter into the industry and be like, it's all about brands,
right?
And just say it, and it's like, oh, then it's gonna work. So there's
Right.
just so many ways that it's a heavy lift, and it doesn't scale the same way as in other
it doesn't.
consumer categories.
I think one of the things that's been interesting to me to watch also is that I think a lot of organizations have 5 or 6 different brands. Rather than branding everything under sort of an umbrella, they actually have 5 or 6 distinctly different brands. And talk about a heavy lift. That's a heavy lift. It's hard enough to build one brand, let alone try to build 5 or 6.
Yeah, very good point.
So what are some recent markets that you've moved into?
Yeah, so we are currently in 14 markets in the United States.
Wow.
9 markets in Canada, and we just launched in Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago.
Incredible.
So that's our first foray into Latin America. So that's really exciting because we think there's going to be lots more opportunity there, obviously. So it's a nice kind of safe way to experiment with the Latin market. And of course we have some very, very fun flavors that we think are really going to resonate well, including what you are drinking, the Pina Colada,
That's
which
right.
is from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And we have a Pina Colada quick onset gummy flavor. So we're all waiting anxiously to see how that one does there.
Now that's a pairing I'm here for. And in terms, because Puerto Rico, they're reciprocal with medical cards, right? So if I have a California medical card, I can
Yes.
travel to Puerto Rico and
Yes.
enjoy your gummies.
Mhm.
Well,
We-
that's an incentive to get my medical card.
Yeah, and visit Puerto Rico
Yeah.
too. I've never been.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's great. Good
oh.
surfing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, when you go to a new market, do you bring like a certain assortment of products? Are there like the best sellers, or is it the latest products, or is it just kind of vary depending on the market need?
You know, it does vary, but there is some logic behind how it varies. So, for example, when we enter a really brand new market, we'll usually enter with our classic gummies, which are our basic distillate gummies, because the market generally is just so excited that they get legal cannabis that's enough at that point in time. And then we have, waiting in the wings, we have our more sophisticated formulations, like our quick onset products, our optimals, which is our use case specific products, and then we just launched a live rosin gummy that also incorporates the quick onset technology. So it's nice to have a lot of products that we're going to be able to bring to a market. But sometimes when we enter a market that's already pretty mature and saturated, and actually Nevada would be a great example of this. We re-entered Nevada for the third time, talking about making some mistakes. But we re-entered Nevada for the third time about 2.5, 3 months ago. And we launched with our quick onset gummies there. We did a huge takeover at Planet 13. It's just the perfect Vegas product,
Love
right?
it.
So it really does depend on the market, the competitive set in the market, the maturity of the market, the price sensitivity of the market. There's a lot of variables that go into choosing the portfolio that we launch with.
Absolutely. Can you share a little bit for those who are not in a market where they've had live rosin consumable products? When you share what the intention is behind that and what it brings to the market?
Yes, absolutely. So the live rosin products are, if I had to stereotype them, which I don't normally like to do, but I'll do it in this case. I think of it as kind of the connoisseur product.
Yes.
It's made with a whole extract of the plant. You use a press. It's solventless, so a lot of people like it because it's solventless. But I think the thing that really distinguishes it is that type of extraction preserves all the plant compounds, all the terpenes, all the cannabinoids, all the flavonoids. So it's as close as you're going to get to smoking without smoking. But it is the embodiment of the entourage effect because you're getting all the compounds of the plant in the gummy itself.
Yeah, I recently, PAX started doing the live rosin pods for vape, and the taste profile is pretty profound. And
Yeah.
I realized that was because it's almost like a juice press of the cannabis.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I'm excited to try the gummies
Yeah,
too.
they're really, really good.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It could, because I'm a huge, we talk about this a lot. Like the industry grew up and there was indica, sativa, but we are really trying to talk more about the different compounds of the plant and the different terpenes and how that can be expressed, but also the taste profile. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
So did you have to, actually, from a formulation standpoint, because the taste profile is more profound in that, do you try to work differently with the flavor formulations?
Absolutely. So what we did in that case, so we have 4 flavors essentially, and each flavor maps to a particular strain family. I'd say not an individual strain, because we chose not to do the individual strain little drops model because it's very, very hard to scale.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard from a production point of view. So we have, we've got sort of a gassy, diesely grouping. We have a piney grouping. We have a floral grouping and a fruity grouping. And each of them is paired with a flavor that goes especially well with those terpenes. So, but what it allows us to do with these 4 profiles is we can slot in different strains that are within that strain family.
That is so cool. How long is the product cycle in terms of new product development for you on something like that?
You know, it really depends on the product. That product actually, for that one, supply chain is really the key issue, because you have to be working with an extractor who's got, sufficient access to enough of a given strain that you can scale it, right? But from a formulation point of view, it's actually pretty straightforward once you have the oil. Now, some of our optimals products, which are the use case specific products, are highly formulated.
Okay.
So they will have, THC, they'll have CBD, they'll have CBN, they'll have, functional and coactive ingredients. And those, we always start with the science. What does the science tell us about what effective doses are? Because sometimes you see cannabis products and, they'll have various ingredients in them. But if you look at how much is actually in there, they're not actually enough to be doing anything. They're sort of just sprinkling them in, So we really start with what is considered to be an effective dose. And then we do a lot of sensory testing. So, when we say that a sleep product is effective, we know because we've had many, many people try it and rate it. And it's not uncommon for us to go through 3 or 4 cycles of refining the formulation before we get it to a sensory evaluation level that we think is good enough to bring to market. So we've had products that have taken 3 months to develop. We have products that have taken over 2 years to develop. It kind of depends on the product.
This is great. All right. Well, thank you for diving in. I'm so
Sure.
curious about all of this.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the innovation work that Wana does, particularly around the fast onset stuff. I'm a huge fan of the product personally. I think it's great, to kind of change the game of how edibles work. And it's pretty interesting with is it distillate otherwise and then live rosin with the new stuff?
It is distillate, but one of the things that we do is we actually work with a terpene company that's really quite sophisticated in terms of its formulations. And so they have formulations that support different effects.
Yeah.
So we might start with a distillate, but then we'll add back in terpenes, for example, that are associated with more of indica type leaning strains, or more hybrid strains, or more sativa strains. So it's distillate, but it's enhanced.
Got it.
Even the basic gummies have that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then as far as consumer education, consumer adoption, how's that been going? Are you finding more and more consumers are looking for fast onset? Is it something? I feel like everything should be fast onset at this point, but there's still a lot that aren't.
Not to
What I would
project,
say
but-
is, I think what we hear a lot, and I know that this is even true for me, is that people prefer different formats for different uses. So, like, if I'm going out, I'm doing something social, I love the quick onset. It comes on fast. It also is fast offset, right? So, you're out with friends, you're at a concert or something, and then you're ready to drive home safely, right? But I also am a terrible sleeper, so I also like our classic gummies coupled with our sleep gummies. I do a lot of stacking of stuff. So for me, it really is dependent on what it is, what's the experience that I'm trying to have. And I think we do a lot of training of bud tenders around that talking point, if you will.
Yeah.
And bud tenders are still a pretty primary way that people learn about products and get recommended products, which is both a pro and a con. And the pro is that, there's a smaller group of people to educate. The con is that, bud tenders frequently are recommending the products that they like, right? And they are mostly regular users of cannabis.
Yeah.
So it leans things a little bit towards the high dosage recreational products, which is a little bit more challenging for the more niche-y, nuanced health and wellness focused products.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
So-
I'll just say this too. I mean, one of the ways that if you create a category and then a lot of people want to get into it, the way you maintain market share is by innovating. And so it's very wise that
Completely
we've taken that approach,
It has been really interesting for us because there has been, one of the things about gummies being such a popular category is it's also the most competitive category. It's incredibly competitive. And there has been a bit of a race to the bottom in the distillate gummy market. And that gives us sort of a stark sort of brand choice, right?
Yes.
Are we going to join the race to the bottom, or are we going to try to hold price point through innovation and creating products that are higher value to people? And we've chosen the latter.
That makes a lot of sense. I was actually just looking at the data around that, especially in California. It's kind of crazy what's going on there. But I think that's really, That's it. That's the key thing on brands. And I think a lot of people haven't thought that through. They're like, oh, you just want traction. But it's like, there's a lot of work that has to go into it after that to maintain market share and to grow it. So
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
So it's 420 week.
Yes.
It was 420 yesterday. So what did Wana Brands do anything around 420?
No.
No.
Forget it.
420? No, actually, we did something that is really exciting and meaningful to us as a company. And this is actually, I have to thank Canopy for this, because it really was an outgrowth of our transaction with Canopy in October, which is that I was able to start a private foundation, which I named the Wana Brands Foundation, kind of in honor of where the money came from, right? But that really has enabled us to bring our CSR and philanthropy levels to a new height, right? So what we did for 420, and this is actually an extension of what we did last year, is we internally and hopefully externally at some point rebranded it Forward 20, with the thought that we want to play it forward, that cannabis should not only be a wonderful recreational option on 420, but it's also the opportunity for the industry to really give back to the communities in which they operate. So what we did is we made 14 donations to a nonprofit in each of our 14 states, all around the issue of food insecurity, all interesting different models, everything from putting grocery stores that sell fresh produce in food deserts to, community food shares to waste, things looking at food waste. But they were all around the issues of feeding people. And we gave $10,000 to each of these nonprofits. And that's really what we wanted to do this year. We said, I think everybody has enough T-shirts. We're thinking that everybody's got enough right now.
Yeah.
So, that's really kind of been our focus, is how do we use that holiday to express something larger than just a party.
That is amazing. Just to share, first of all, I was just so excited when I saw that you were doing that. And, every night I kind of try to manifest something around the whole reason we're all working so hard for this. And the way I think about it is I'm trying to manifest that we all become incredibly successful. This all really works out well. And the end intention is I have something I want to do to give back when we get to have that moment. So I was just like, what a cool thing to see someone do who had a really successful outcome in this industry with that transaction, which, by the way, congratulations. Yeah, and I think that idea of being able to give back is so meaningful, and I think it just manifests like a virtuous cycle. So
I agree.
Awesome.
And, for us, I think what we've really tried to do with the CSR initiatives is not have them be sort of siloed off into one little part of the company, but to have it be baked into everything that we do. So it's really a big focus for Wana. So I'm very happy to be able to do it.
Yeah, and equality of access to good food, nutritious food is so immense, and I think a lot of folks don't understand.
Yes,
what
and
it
it's getting
means.
worse
It
with the
is.
inflationary situation. More and more people are hungry, or they're having to make big compromises in terms of the quality of the food that they're eating.
Exactly. My sister works in the public schools in San Francisco, and that was one of the things during the pandemic too, is like when people go home, what do they have access to? And so I think we really do need to think about this as like the base of making sure everyone's okay. It's like they're getting
it's interesting because our tagline as a company is enhance your life.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is you're not focusing on enhancing your life when you're hungry. You're just worried about getting fed, right? So I think you have to really start at the basic level, because good nutrition is the basis of health and wellness, right? Without that, you don't have health and wellness.
That's right. And when you have to make cost decisions, it doesn't always lead down that path. So that's huge.
Well,
Congratulations.
I can't think of a better way to celebrate 420 than that. So really, really very special that you're doing that, Nancy. Well, and thanks for joining us. Where else can people learn about Wana Brands?
First of all, visit us in any of our 14 states. Go into a dispensary and demand that they carry Wana Brands if it's not there. But if you can't do that, another option would be to go to our website, which is www.wanabrands.com, and you'll get a lot of information there as well.
great.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.